Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into why the hyperspeed development of AI isn't just your standard tech story anymore. Oh no, it's actually a complete mathematical rewrite of our entire economy. We're talking about a structural shift that fundamentally changes the basic equation of how we survive and thrive as human beings.
Okay, let's kick things off with this absolutely massive statement from Elon Musk. Usually we're used to tech leaders promising us that their shiny new innovations will create endless new jobs, right? But here, we're getting the exact opposite warning, and it completely upends how we traditionally think about the future of work. So, think about it. This brings us to a wildly fascinating paradox. Why is the guy racing to automate human labor simultaneously warning us that our current social system literally can't survive the output of his own production lines? Well, it's simple. He sees what's coming down the pipe, and he's doing the math.
Section 1. The end of the ladder, when technology takes the rungs. Now, to understand why this specific moment in time is different, we have to look at the comforting story we always tell ourselves about technological transitions. Historically, whenever a machine displaced human labor, a new rung on the economic ladder magically appeared to catch everybody. People moved from farms to factories, factories to offices, and then offices to software. There was always a new place for human cognition and creativity to go. But check out the stark contrast between the individual workers who were crushed in the short term and the long-term aggregate recovery of the economy. We kind of laugh at the Luddites who smashed the power looms back in the 1800s because in the grand scheme of things, their grandchildren did totally fine. But those individual handweavers, they actually lost their homes, their savings, and their entire economic identity. The transition was brutal for the people living through it. And with AI, this transition isn't going to take 30 years. It's being measured in quarters. Which leads us to the reality of artificial intelligence. It's the first tech in 250 years that doesn't just take a specific physical job. It replaces the underlying human cognition, the writing, the analysis, and the judgment that actually creates jobs in the first place. For the first time ever, the machine is replacing the very traits that made human work defensible. So, that old answer of just retraining and moving up the ladder, yeah, that stops working when there's no ladder left. The machine itself has literally become the ladder. Section 2. The invisible job crisis, hiding in the averages. You might be looking at your own career right now and wondering, am I safe? Especially if the macroeconomic numbers look totally fine on the surface. Take the official U.S. unemployment rate as of March 2026. It's sitting at a historically normal 4.3%. But hey, averages lie. That average is heavily propped up by physical jobs. We're talking mechanics, cooks, electricians, plumbers, jobs where AI currently has basically zero task coverage. But dip just underneath the surface, and the bottom rungs are rapidly vanishing. I mean, look at how hiring for young software engineers dropped by nearly 20% between 2022 and 2025. Computer science and computer engineering grads are sitting at unemployment rates of 6.1 and 7.5%. And why is that? Because senior developers are just using AI coding tools to delegate tasks straight to a model instead of hiring human juniors. And we are absolutely seeing the real-world impact of this play out right now. Outplacement firms are tracking tens of thousands of layoffs where artificial intelligence is the explicitly cited reason for the cuts. Snap cutting 16% of its workforce, Block cutting nearly half its headcount, and Salesforce slashing its numbers drastically because, as their CEO flat out noted, they simply need fewer people. Guys, this is just the opening act. To put that into perspective, according to Anthropic's economic index, nearly half of their tracked occupations already have a solid quarter of their tasks handled by the AI model. And let's be real about the nature of business. Companies don't just keep unneeded workers around when task loads drop by 25%. They don't keep a quarter fewer workers. They keep zero of the workers who used to do that quarter and just stretch everybody else.
Section 3. The tax base collapse, breaking the fiscal math.
So, this invisible labor crisis, it triggers a much larger systemic catastrophe that very few leaders actually want to say out loud right now. The entire modern government is built on taxing human labor. Roughly 85% of U.S. federal revenue comes directly from taxes on individual income and payroll. The whole system literally assumes human beings are the ones waking up, going to work, being productive, and paying the bills. Because, as we all know, robots do not pay income tax. So we have to ask the billion-dollar question. When AI displaces those wage earners, what happens? The tax base that funds Medicare, Social Security, defense, roads, schools, it all completely evaporates. And it happens exactly when the displaced public needs those safety nets the absolute most. And running right parallel to this labor and fiscal crisis is the terrifying reality that the United States is already $40 trillion in debt. That's 40 trillion with a T. That means there is absolutely zero fiscal buffer left to absorb a displacement shock of this magnitude. Section 4. The Federal Check Solution. Evidence from the real world. This brings us right back to that solution Elon Musk proposed, which basically requires a complete 40-year rewrite of the tax code compressed into about 5 years. The core mechanism goes like this. You must tax the output of the technology causing the problem to fund the people harmed by the problem. It means entirely rewriting the tax code around capital and production, instead of human labor. You tax the machines, not the people, and you distribute that capital directly back to the citizens. And hey, this isn't just some wild, pie-in-the-sky theory. We actually have randomized controlled trials and decades of hard evidence for this. Take the Alaska Permanent Fund. Since 1982, they've paid annual dividends to residents, and it dropped child poverty by up to 1/3 without decreasing employment. The Stockton pilot in California gave residents $500 a month, and full-time employment actually went up 12 points. In rural Kenya, a massive trial literally doubled net revenues for recipients and sent local entrepreneurship surging. The data is clear. Giving people capital actually works. Now I know what you're thinking. What about inflation? The absolute most common fear is that just handing out money makes prices skyrocket. But the reality is actually deflationary. Alaska ran lower inflation than the U.S. average over its 40-year dividend period. Plus, a 2024 Bank for International Settlements paper backs up Musk's theory. Because AI creates an absolute explosion of incredibly cheap goods and services, the supply of stuff heavily outpaces the money being handed out. And when supply outpaces demand, prices fall. It's basic economics that prevents the inflation. Section 5. A bipartisan math problem. The inevitable consensus. Because this is an impartial structural reality, the political response is genuinely starting to mirror the economic data across the entire ideological spectrum. On one side, you have figures like Andrew Yang. Back in 2020, people kind of laughed at him for proposing a freedom dividend. But by early 2026, he was accurately sounding the alarm on the impending wave of white-collar displacement, fully recognizing that AI can now do the work of incredibly smart humans in mere seconds. And then, on the exact opposite side of the political aisle, figures like J.D. Vance and Donald Trump have proposed national bonuses and tariff dividends. Now, while the specific funding mechanism differs, structurally, these are identical ideas. They are both federal cash transfers going straight to citizens. So what you should really take away from this explainer is that whether you want to call it a freedom dividend, a tariff dividend, or universal high income, distributing capital is the only mathematical way to prevent the social system from totally collapsing. When AI produces immense wealth but completely removes the human labor required to buy that wealth, the math simply demands a new distribution mechanism. It's not left-wing, it's not right-wing, it's just math. As 24-year-old coders and 50-year-old customer service reps alike wake up to find their career ladders completely replaced by a machine, we're left with one final, absolutely undeniable choice. Are we going to look at the data, read the math, and design this new economic system deliberately today? Or are we going to wait until the ladder breaks completely and try to patch it all together in the middle of a blazing crisis?